All right, welcome along to another episode of the DePIN Coffee Hour, episode 24 for anyone counting. We have a weird and wonderful episode today compared to usual, as part of the lead up to our airdrop, which is happening in 2 weeks. Well, the actual drop will happen in 2 weeks. Our snapshot is in 2 days, so more on that in this episode. As I welcome to the stage our CEO and co-founder, Andrew. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Neil.
And two of our most active, most awesome community members who are basically taking over for today. That's Svei, aka Airdrop Hunter, and Bob, aka Bob. Welcome, guys. Thanks for coming here. Thanks for agreeing to come on and grill us. Hopefully the questions won't be too hard, hopefully. But anyways, welcome to the show. And this is, just a little bit different. I'm not sure whether I should be feeling relaxed about the fact that I don't have to think up questions on the fly, or stressed about the fact that I have to think up the answers for a change. But we'll get into it now, and we'll see how it all plays out. I guess first of all, maybe if you guys wouldn't mind just telling us, like, how did you find Havelo, and what was that journey like for you, and how into DePIN are you at this point, decentralization, etc. Just give us a little introduction to yourselves, maybe. Whoever wants to go first can go first.
I'll go first, if Bob is okay with that. Well, believe me or not, my journey into the Web3 universe, or in the DePIN in just general, began only about 9 months ago.
Amazing.
I was just randomly searching for ways for a passive income, as many other users do. And what opened my eyes was not the DeFi, but the DePIN, mostly because it's the best opportunity for people out there who want to make some income to achieve that goal with minimum, and in many cases with zero investment. But in time, after installing one node, then another, third, fourth, I found myself that my PC was overloaded with many random nodes. Some of them were fighting each other for hardware resources. And one idea came to my mind back then, and it was, why didn't someone found a way to aggregate all these nodes in one place? And sadly, I found out that Havelo already had stolen my idea.
Very good.
And I chose to stick with Havelo and to support the team, because first of all, the team is completely transparent, and it was one of the very few projects out there which are not forcing users to invest, for example, like many others do with verification the wallet or buying some NFTs. Havelo was exactly what I was searching for.
Great.
To gain some profits with absolutely zero investment on my side.
Excellent. Thanks.
And that's it for me.
Bob?
Yeah, so similar to Seb, I'm only about 9 months into this. I went on a camping trip, and my brother-in-law, his brother was big into Bitcoin, and kind of orange pilled me on that trip, and started kind of this journey that started with, I'm going to buy some Bitcoin, I'm going to understand a little bit about decentralization. And then as I dug deeper and deeper, got more interested in the DePIN aspect. Part of it, as I've said, is, there was some projects that were very low outlay, but, there's also a whole different industry to it. It's DePIN's a way to kind of get access to founders like we're having today. What other space can you do that where you can talk directly to founders, understand what's going in projects early? You also have the decentralization aspect to it. And like Seb, I dabbled with, some hardware components, but a lot of the free stuff basically killed one of my computers to the point where I couldn't do anything with it. Tried to, do some of the WSL Windows, and it was overly complicated for me as someone who's not in IT. So after I wiped one hard drive, I decided, okay, maybe running these individual nodes isn't for me. And I found Havelo, and it's definitely, a product that's ahead of its time in terms of where we're going with it. Very excited, a great community, and that's what kept me around.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually fascinating, like saying about your search for passive income, because I remember doing a similar search, but I show my age here a little bit, but probably around 2010 or something like that, or maybe even earlier than that. And yeah, it was all MLM, like multi-level marketing schemes and stuff that was all like, refer 5 people into your whatever it's called, downline or pyramid schemes, basically. So it's cool that like nowadays that there's actual technology options for people who are searching for that kind of thing. All right, thanks, guys. Sorry, go on.
No, sorry, no, I didn't mean to jump in there. I was just thinking it's interesting that that's where you mentioned about the fact that you didn't have to pay to join Havelo. You didn't have to buy an NFT or do any kind of transaction, and some people who've been in the community or know the team are aware. Some may not be aware of our kind of philosophy and how this actually came about. It's not a mistake that it's free to join. The story for us really was myself and Dominic, one of the other co-founders. We were really big into investing in DePIN early on, when you had to buy physical hardware, $300 devices. And we'd buy these devices, and we're at the mercy of one DePIN, and we really felt that kind of lack of choice over where we could actually go with this computer that we'd essentially bought, this router or whatever type of hardware that you've invested in. That really kind of really sort of I guess made an impact on us, and when we started Havelo, when we put together the company, we really took a complete 180 on the idea of buying a $200 or $300 device that does one thing, and we said, well, what if we do the exact opposite, and what is the exact opposite of buying a $200 device that does one thing? Well, it's using a device that you already have. You might even have an old computer, an old laptop that's a few years old, sitting on the shelf gathering dust. If you're like me, I've got probably a couple of them that for some reason I've held on to and believe that I'll someday use them and never really do. And what if we make the software free and monetize it by having a revenue share with the users? So for Havelo, essentially, we only win if the end user wins. So we have a lot, invested in ensuring that our users, can actually win. It's in our favor for users to make a passive income. So yeah, it wasn't a mistake that we started. Our philosophy was to make it free. It really was kind of a deliberate kind of I guess step away from where the DePIN industry was, at the time, and that's going back a few years now, and there's lots of new interesting models since then. But yeah, we've maintained the philosophy of make it easy, make it free.
And I hope that you will keep that philosophy. I found it really simple and brilliant, in my opinion.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. I think most people, there's almost an expectation with Web 2 users that you can go onto an app store and you can download an application and get it up and running within a few minutes, like Spotify or something along those kind of lines. And for us, that really was if we can't get somebody to find our application, download it, and at least install it and get the process running within sort of 5 minutes, I think it's just going to be far too hard. People's attention spans these days is very, very short, and I think 5 minutes is the sort of maximum that someone will really invest before they think, okay, well, this is just, it's too hard. I'm out of here. And I think by putting up these kind of paywalls, it's one of the easiest way to kind of scare people off. So yeah, well, I don't see our philosophy changing anytime soon when it comes to how we can onboard users.
Yeah, Havelo only works if we get a huge user base over time. And so like you want to make sure, and this is one of the reasons I was really excited to join the project at first, was because you need to make sure that it's as friction-free as possible onboarding new users, so anybody can do it. You don't need to know about crypto even. Literally as simple as Spotify. If it's any more challenging than that to install. And actually, I would say that Havelo, having just reinstalled Spotify on my Mac, I would say Havelo was easier to install than Spotify was, because I had a major pain in my ass the last time I tried to install it on this. There doesn't seem to be any native application for the Mac, just for the iPhone. So I don't know. I struggle with that, and I work in technology, and I've worked in technology businesses for 20 years. So, yeah. Anyways,
I agree with you, Neil.
Yeah.
In terms of installation and the setup process and the user interface in general, in my opinion, there is no way to make it any more simpler than that.
There's a balloon
100%.
on Bob's face.
Bob mentioned WSL. Yeah, I also see this balloon, but
That's the Easter egg.
that was
Shenanigans going on with our community.
Yeah.
Get out of the way.
Sorry for I didn't do it, by the way. I'm not taking the blame, but yeah, I believe Krishna just put our balloons. Yeah. Yes. Look, I think we'll just hand it over to you guys, and you can ask us questions. I know that we've been collecting questions from the community. So I don't know, Bob, do you want to go first? And
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So I'm going to start off with a couple questions for one of our other ambassadors, Rems. And his question is, do you believe Havelo can realistically become a household name like AWS, Google Cloud, or does its value lie in the invisible backend?
that one's for you, Andrew.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, very, very good question. I think fundamentally, for DePIN to be a real, have a real opportunity at being a mainstream product in itself, forgetting Havelo at all, just focusing on DePIN for a second. I think you really have to fundamentally believe in the D and DePIN, the decentralization aspect, and if we're going to create a fourth competitor to Google Cloud or Amazon or Microsoft Azure, it sort of becomes a centralized, decentralized kind of platform, and our kind of philosophy is to be DePIN agnostic, and what we mean by that is we're not building our own competitor to one of the existing clouds. We're assessing the market for the best DePIN projects that we believe in, that we put our stamp on, that give our users the opportunity to generate a revenue from. So I don't think we'll be, I don't think we ourselves will become a competitor to one of the kind of cloud computes. And I, as I sort of gather it, I don't believe that that should be the way that any company in this space goes. I think all of us benefit from the decentralization element. So I'd really like to see DePIN maintaining a healthy ecosystem of hundreds, if not thousands, of different users and companies and consumers and providers, exchanging whether it's bandwidth or CPU cycles or GPU cycles. So I guess the first half of that question is, I don't see us becoming a public cloud kind of competitor. Of course, I'd love to see us become. I think the household name was the term that was used. But
Yep.
I see us being, more like a marketplace or an app store as opposed to a dedicated kind of competitor.
Yeah,
Great. I
can
know
I make
in
an analogy?
prior
Could-
coffee hours, Neil, I think we've made the comment that, ideally what we'd love to see is every copy of Windows has a copy of Havelo attached to it. And users can just choose to install or uninstall, or there's a card attached when you purchase a new computer that, here's your Havelo sign up now. And I do, in my opinion on that question is, I think it's in the front end, and I think people do need to know the name in the marketing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, the analogy for me, or maybe just come at it from a slightly different perspective, is that, like in this example, Google Cloud or AWS or something like that is sort of like your power company, and Havelo's kind of a little bit more like a solar panel that you might decide to put on your roof. We're not, for the value proposition for the average Joe or Jane is that, they get to tap into, they just get to use their unused computer resources to tap in to something that's going to help them offset some of the costs of their life, or potentially earn a second income in a similar way to a solar panel. You're not competing with the grid, being a solar panel company, but you are just allowing people to essentially harvest the resources that they already have at their disposal and kind of allow them to use those in a sort of a passive income, as a passive income stream that helps offset the costs of life, or in some cases may generate a second income. So that's kind of the way that I see it, which is a slightly different market positioning than is being suggested in the question there. But yeah, again, as the person in charge of marketing, I'd very much love it if we were a household name.
Great. Next question. I'm going to combine a question from Rose and a question from Bim Boom. As a community, we ask a lot of questions, and we want all the answers, and we want them all right now. And a lot of those answers, we get answers that are soon, and which we understand as an organization, you're not going to have all the answers. But are there any concrete timelines or prioritized features or anything related to the roadmap that you can share with us right now?
Yeah,
that's it. Sorry, Neil.
Well, I was just going to say a very quick thing, which is that we did just publish the half-year report. It didn't go into a huge amount of detail about what's to come in the second half of this year. But I would say, just like, at least from my end, and Andrew may have more granular visibility on this, but from my end, in the marketing function, you're always trying to toe a line. Like, we want to be transparent. It's part of trust, which is just, it's just so important in the Web3 space to have trust and have a community that trusts you. And the best way to achieve that is to be transparent and open about everything. But of course, everybody wants to know absolutely every detail, like at a level where, it's just silly. Like most Web2 businesses that I've consulted with over the last, 7 years that are looking at Web3 cannot wrap their head around the level of transparency that's required to sort of onboard a community and keep them, engaged and motivated. But with that said, when you're developing something and you've got a team who are working very hard to develop something, and you're doing that in an industry where things are changing really quickly, and from week to week, not just the technology, the market, things that people want, the demand, which is a huge issue in DePIN at the moment, the demand side of the supply and demand things, where they're actually selling DePIN to end customers who are putting essentially dollars into the digital asset ecosystem, whatever that DePIN token is. It's just very hard to be able to see too far into the future. There's a sort of a fog of war, if you will, about developing in this space. So, like, it's not that we don't want to. When we say soon, it's not that we don't want to say, well, like, this is when it's going to happen. It's just that, like, if you get it wrong, it's essentially rope that anybody will use to try and hang you in the space. So it's a very fine line that you're trying to balance all the time between things that we know that we can deliver on time and things that we know when we want to deliver them, if everything works according to plan, which it almost never does because of all the unknown variables that are, some of which are inside of our control, but many of which are completely outside of our control. So that's all I wanted to say on that. And Andrew may have he definitely have a different perspective on it, I'm sure, but.
Yeah, no, not too different. I don't imagine. I think one of the most, I guess, difficult things when it comes to road mapping and what what Havelo does is as you mentioned, Neil, is being able to give a actionable or solid deadline as to when are you going to have, let's say, this particular DePIN integrated by. And I think when we're very, very in our infancy as a company, I think I personally have made the mistake a few times of being giving solid dates to different users, when really we were relying on the DePINs themselves to either go mainnet or make some kind of change or internal kind of process, and that that was really out of our hands, and it does become very difficult as a as a business or as a project to be able to say, I'm going to make a date based upon another project's I guess roadmap themselves. So we've started to become, I guess, a little bit more hesitant about when we actually give a date that we can hand on heart deliver upon that date. So I can understand that people would be curious or maybe a bit frustrated. Why can't we get a list of the next 20 DePINs that you're going to integrate, or when's this feature going to be ready? And it will almost always end up in a egg on our face, or as Neil said, it's if we make a determination based upon somebody else's roadmap. So the things that we can the processes or the features that we're developing internally that don't involve third parties, those are the items that we can do, I think, a better job at be able to give clearer dates. But yeah, it is a real kind of balancing act between giving a date that we can put our hand on heart to, and giving a date that consistently can't be met, and I think that's just puts everybody in a very difficult position.
Yeah, because we could be working on something like, for example, just to give you a real world example, we could be working on withdrawals or something like that, and then our most, like the DePIN that's the most profitable of the ones that we've aggregated for the most amount of users could do a some sort of a release that's breaking to past versions, and all of a sudden everybody's revenue just dies, and which we realize quite quickly. But again, it's decentralized tech, so they're not under any obligation to tell us ahead of time that they're going to do that. Sometimes they do, but then it's a scramble to fix that. So it's all hands on deck to fix that, because we can't have, it just doesn't work if we don't have revenue flowing to people. So that's our sort of North Star, I would say. And there's just a lot of variables that we have no control or even sometimes visibility over, like that in that example, which is just one of many.
Sure. Can we expect an updated roadmap anytime in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, I think we hinted at what's coming in more than hinted. We expressed in that half-year report the things that we want to try and achieve by the end of the year at a very high level. Again, we can talk about that if you want. Andrew, did you want to?
Yeah, I mean, Sure. I mean, I think our biggest priority for from now to the end of the year is delivering on our withdrawals to users. I think that's fundamentally one of the apart from the DePINs themselves, is unlocking that value for our users is key, and delivering on that is I would say our number one priority. Second to this is, we're seeing obviously more and more opportunities opening up with decentralized AI model, whether it be training or video generation or text generation, and I think particularly video is probably a matter, as an industry, I guess, is probably only a matter of months before it just really explodes. We're starting to see just sort of little snippets of that at the moment. I'm sure if you're a TikTok user or an Instagram user or YouTube user, you've probably noticed in the last sort of month, maybe 2 months, the amount of AI generated kind of video that's just popping up. And so, to give you an idea, it takes, say somebody who's got an RTX 3060, which is a pretty sort of standard, video card. It might take maybe 5 to 10 seconds to generate an AI-based kind of image using a trained model, but it takes about 20 minutes to generate a 5 to 10 second AI video clip. So the multiples of compute, GPU compute required to power all of these video models is, in my opinion anyway, is just absolutely going to explode, and the demand is I think going to be enormous. So for us, ensuring that we can offer this to this opportunity to our users as it comes online, is secondarily our focus from now to the end of the year.
Yeah, it's going to aggravate.
Go ahead, Neil.
There's going to be an aggravation. There's an asymmetry in what demand and supply for that type of thing at the moment, that type of GPU compute, and that asymmetry is going to be severely amplified by the explosion of video. So, plus it seems like at the moment in DePIN AI and the GPU compute is the biggest earning space. So that's presumably going to increase as demand heavily outweighs the supply that's available. So yeah, I think I know that and again, it's too early to talk about actual projects, but I know that there's 4 or 5 projects that we're actively exploring aggregating at the moment. I think most of them are in that kind of space, in the AI GPU space. So yeah, there is going to be more of that coming, but our priority is definitely withdrawals. And I think if by the end of the year we get that sorted and there's a lot of optimization that can happen as well. Andrew spends a lot of his time thinking about how to playing with various DePIN toys, let's call them, to try and optimize to make sure that we're getting as much, that Havelo node is getting as much out of that particular project as any other node. We have our own set of complications and challenges.
I was going to say I spend a lot of time in Bob's favorite application, WSL. So Bob, happy to if you ever want a one-on-one tutorial, happy to spend the time. It's
your expert.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's not something that I think people even really knew about, a couple of years ago, and it's becoming so common with all of these particularly on the GPU side. It's becoming kind of standard kit, and yeah, happy any day to give you a tutorial.
I might take you up on that, or I might just run Havelo and not have to worry about it.
Even better.
That will be the best option.
Yeah. So you mentioned withdrawals, which kind of a segue into my next question, because I think it's part of what's going to help drive this. Well, a lot of talk about token price and why price go down. So can you talk about some of the actions planned to make to help drive up the price of or I shouldn't say drive up the price, but to help support the token as we move forward?
Yeah. The sort of fuel of the Havelo ecosystem. So there are a number of things. Obviously, it's not a security, so we wouldn't want to spend too much time or energy thinking about driving the price up per se. However, we do want to make sure that our token holders, the token retains value. So there's a bunch of things that we've done to try and help that. The first one is we have a buyback and burn. So there's a percentage of our tokens. So sorry, a percentage of our revenue that Havelo makes in the revenue split that we take from all of the DePIN miner rewards. A percentage of that gets put into gets used to buy back HVLO off the open market, which is good. That restricts the supply. That is the main mechanic available to any project, I believe, to try and help on the supply side of the equation. And then on the demand side of the equation, we have a few things that we will be doing. Obviously, we have a membership system that will get launched. I think at this point, that's going to be 2026. Hopefully the first half of the year. But again, that's a very loose deadline in terms of roadmap. So yeah, don't hold me to that. Our CTO is probably mentally strangling me at the moment. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But that is high on the list of priorities. So yeah, we'll have memberships where people can essentially stake the HVLO that they've earned, or buy HVLO and stake it to unlock a greater percentage to be able to keep a greater percentage of the rewards that they earn through the DePINs. So that's part of it. Another part of it is the initial, the initial withdrawal system is going to use HVLO. So when you click withdraw, it's going to withdraw it to HVLO. So that's going to create a bunch of buy pressure in the market. And those are the kind of main mechanics. Obviously, in my experience, demand is the greatest driver of any token value accrual. If you've got more and more people wanting to buy the token or needing to buy the token, then you're in a really good place. So I feel like in the case of Havelo, we do that through making sure that the DePINs that we have, and that we're constantly aggregating new DePINs, and those DePINs are as optimized as possible so that they're actually producing notable rewards for people, so that users want to continue to be users, and they want to continue to run as many nodes as they can, and to take as much opportunistic value there as they can get. And then as we onboard, once that's true, as we onboard the masses, let's say, for want of a better way to describe it, through our incredibly easy to use application, then it essentially creates the flywheel that way. So we've got more and more people needing HVLO, buying HVLO through the withdrawal mechanism, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's kind of the broad strokes of it. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Andrew, but that's the guts of it, I think.
I think you covered the main points. I mean, this is the negative side of offering our product, for free, as we talked about before, is by not making or enforcing a large stake to get started. We have to look for other ways that we can encourage token utility, and membership for us is we believe will be one of the key key kind of drivers of token utility, and where we are today is building upon our platform of DePIN integrations, and continue to build upon that platform. But we need to get to a certain level of integrations and hit a certain amount of revenue per user that a user will be encouraged to take up membership. So it's probably taken it's been harder and taken a bit longer than I certainly have anticipated. But as Neil says, it's the long game we're playing, not the short game. Yeah.
Great, thank you both. All right, I'm going to kick it over to Sev to ask some community member questions.
Okay, so I will pull out the first question from my basket, and it's coming from our fellow ambassador Hitkaf. His question is around the most exciting topic at the moment, none other than the airdrop. When will the total points reflect on the dashboard after the snapshot or after the airdrop? Will there be a breakdown of the points to what contributed to how many points?
That's a great question. I'd have to check on the breakdown. That's one thing I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm not.
I don't think so. I think it's an aggregated. What we showed today is an aggregate of the points.
Yeah. So at the moment, yeah, I mean that is actually a really good question, and I don't think we have a great answer for it. But like, just to let you know how it works at the moment is that obviously if you run a node and you're contributing resources, then you're earning points, and those are reflected in the dashboard right now. There's a manual aspect to this airdrop insofar as we implemented Discord roles where there's a community multiplier on your node runner points, and those will be calculated manually essentially after the snapshot's taken. So the snapshot's this Thursday at some point throughout the day, CET time, and then at that point we have a whole process built out where there'll be various exports done from the dashboard, and then my team and some of the technical team will work together to essentially turn that into the final breakdown, because there's 50 million tokens and there'll be an unknown number of airdrop points. So yeah, essentially everybody will be, it'll be mathematically like Excel probably, or Google Sheets will do the sums on it, but yeah, it'll be calculated based on everybody will have a percentage of the pot essentially. And yeah, there's a number of different things. So for example, the referrals, you can see those in your dashboard. But I don't know if the actual number, the 10,000, is going to aggregate in the dashboard. We'll have to run that. We have to run that by Simon, our chief technology officer. So yeah, he will know that. It's certainly something that we could ask for, but it's just about priorities, whether or not it makes sense to do it retroactively. One thing I will say is that there is going to be a run over from airdrop 2 into airdrop 3 because of the 30 days requirement for a referral. We really, really want to, at the moment, the referrals are kind of our chief way of recruiting new nodes, other than whatever marketing that we're doing sort of organically through content, through this show, through, social media, etc. Whatever other campaigns we decide to run, referral marketing, I feel like could be a huge, piece of the puzzle. So we wanted to make sure that people weren't, they didn't just lose the referral because, the person joined 3 weeks from the airdrop date instead of a month, which is the required. They need to have 30 days of uptime in order to qualify for the 10,000 points. So that's going to spill over. So if you're referring someone today, even though the snapshot is in 2 days, those points will carry over into airdrop 3, which will happen sometime towards the end of the year. Probably after Christmas is my guess, but we haven't set a date for that yet.
Okay. Perfect. And speaking of the campaigns around bringing regular Web2 users, do you have any plans for additional campaigns, maybe some stronger marketing? This question is coming from Ando, another ambassador in our community.
Yeah, I mean, I think just on the marketing side, yes, the simple answer to the question is yes. We absolutely have. Our goal was always to build a Web2 application that anybody could use. Our expectation is that a large percentage of those people, particularly when you're talking about big numbers, if you're talking about tens of millions of users, for example, our suspicion is that many of those users don't have a huge interest in crypto, like that these are going to be Web2 users, not Web3 users necessarily. And they probably don't want to have a huge interest in crypto. They just want the offset in their electricity bill or the second income, whatever it is, the passive income. So we want to build. So obviously part of that is to make the application as easy to use as possible. And then from a marketing standpoint, how do you onboard those users? And the answer is through a more traditional kind of a Web2 approach, funnels, marketing funnels, etc. So yes, we have all of that stuff planned. We're not actively trying to onboard those users as of yet. We need there's things that we just need to have achieved. Personally, I think, and again, this is a finger in the air thing rather than anything that's written down in a document, but my gut feel on it is that we'll be out of beta probably before we really push hard on any Web2 kind of traditional Web2 SaaS type marketing. So that's my finger in the air guess. But yeah, so we have a few ducks to get into a row before that's going to be something that we're going to need to do. Do you agree with that, Andrew?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sort of similar to what you mentioned, Neil. I personally also want to see the average, revenue per user, increase. By adding a few more integrations before I think, investing, a material amount of money or resources into marketing, I think is important.
Yeah,
I think that this brings a lot of clarity and answers that question. So the next one, again from our community, as technology advances fast and hardware becomes obsolete, has Hivelo considered this in selection of DePINs to integrate in the future? How does Hivelo plan to ensure that older hardware can still earn effectively?
Sorry, Christian's messing with Bob, and I got distracted.
Bob
peering out from behind the balloon. Krishna. Yeah. That's an Andrew question. So
that's a great question. Where I sort of see, just based over the last 12 to 18 months, purely as a DePIN user myself, as well as building DePIN applications for a living. I'm starting to see sort of almost like a fork, is probably the best way to put it, in that I think we're going to see over the next 18 months a real separation in the types of hardware that is running different applications. And right now, because the industry is so so new, it's in its infancy. We've got people that are running, laptops that are 5, 6, 7 years old. People that are running, brand new gaming rigs that have cost them thousands of dollars. A real mishmash of different kind of hardware. And what I think we're going to see a kind of fork, and I think where DePIN is really going to end up is really high end, say GPU, for the kind of applications, the AI kind of applications that we've kind of spoken about today. And then on the other side, the low powered, low requirement, low compute, low low bandwidth, that powers things like sensors, and even maybe not so much in low bandwidth, but VPN and data bandwidth services. And I think that kind of separation is what I personally foresee in the next sort of 18 months. And so I think what will happen is it'll kind of naturally occur in that, if you have a a brand new device with a great NVIDIA card, if you're fortunate enough to be able to to purchase something like that, then you'll be able to participate in AI, kind of centralized AI applications. But that kind of hardware is completely overkill if you want to run a decentralized VPN node like a Mysterium or something like that we run. That can be run on even a small $30 or $40 Raspberry Pi. And so I think as long as there's as long as there's demand for decentralized services, there'll be a place for that hardware. So I've been doing this for almost 4 years now, and I personally have some Raspberry Pis running things like Mysterium, and running that for 3 or 4 years, I think now, and nothing's changed, and there's nothing that I can foresee in the next year that's gonna change that. So I think there's always going to be a space for what I think you've labeled obsolete hardware, or hardware that you've replaced, and it's back to our philosophy as well. Our original cloud philosophy was we don't want people to have to spend $200 or $300 or more to be able to participate in DePIN. We want people to be able to use their own hardware that they've already purchased, or maybe even if you're like me and I've got my laptop, that my daily driver, I guess, and I'm sort of in and out of the office, and it's right now, I would say it's not the best machine because I'm constantly going offline, online. But I've got plenty of, as I mentioned, plenty of old devices sitting around that I just need to brush the dust off, get all the cobwebs out, and they're perfect for running many of these applications. And some of their the wonderful thing about DePIN is if you it's supply and demand, and if you have a unique opportunity, you're in a unique geolocation that isn't has a lot of demand and isn't particularly well covered, there's some really interesting earning opportunities. And I think Neil, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, we might have talked about it on a previous DePIN coffee hour, but we're seeing places like New Zealand, Singapore, Mexico, places that have right now only a very small number of local users running nodes, but have large, let's say, expat populations working overseas, and they have that requirement to they want to watch the local TV channel back home, and so they're using these decentralized VPN services which are powered by projects like Mysterium. And like I said, that you can run that with a $30 Raspberry Pi if you want, and you're at no disadvantage to somebody who's got a $2,000 top of the line NVIDIA 5090 card, because that card isn't going to do anything for a bandwidth VPN node. So I think there's personally, I think there's always going to be a place for hardware, and I think it's actually better for the environment. I think it's better to continue to use this hardware that isn't actually, there's nothing inherently wrong with it other than its its age. And personally, I like recycling these kind of things and giving them kind of new life.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of our members also asked if Hebelo is planning to become carbon neutral in the future.
Oof.
And you
That's a
covered
great
that
question.
part with your answer.
Yeah,
Because
look,
keeping old hardware and supporting the recycling, this is the path. This is the right path.
yeah, definitely.
So-
Look,
Totally.
yeah.
I will continue with one of my personal questions. I know that Hivelo's concept is to attract the masses of users who have no experience and knowledge in Web3, even in the field of IT and hardware in general. But the lack of greater control over individual nodes is pushing back many advanced users who would like to have control over and when how to allocate their hardware resources. My suggestion and question is, are you willing to bring back the option to manually switch on and switch off the individual nodes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I probably have a disappointing answer for this question, and if just bear with me for a minute. This is a this is a topic that gets debated internally, probably more so than
Contentious.
yeah, exactly. I mean, other than the most, the highest priority items working, whether it's, withdrawals or deep integrations, I'd say this topic is the most contentious topic internally as to where do um, we fit in terms of ease of use, and hey, you don't need to configure anything, we'll do it all for you, it's just set and forget, versus I want to be able to really fine tune the different parameters around what the application can and can't do. And yeah, it's a very good question, and I'm probably personally myself more the kind of user that would be one of those users that would want to get in there and actually fine tune certain things. I would say right now, our position is where we are as a project is, I think the ability to really fine tune lots of individual parameters in the application, on top of running and trying to orchestrate 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 different DePINs all at the same time. I think for us, putting those two kind of variables on top of each other just make things a little bit difficult for us to be able to provide the best outcome for the wider kind of audience. So it's not a yes and it's not a no. I think it's something that we're really constantly assessing and reassessing over time. I think I think Sve, you mentioned we had some elements that you were able to control before. You were able to turn things on and off. That was something that at the time we thought was really an important feature, and what we found over time is that, oh, I'm getting some feedback here, guys. I think no, maybe not. What we sort of what we discover along the way is that for like I mentioned, for the stage that we're in, and as a project, it's just far too many kind of variables to really understand on a wider kind of sample size of group is, how can we optimize it for the average user? So yeah, I won't say no and I won't say yes. I think it's going to be something that will be continually evaluated and reevaluated again and again. I don't think we're going to land on a hard no or a hard yes on this one in the short term. I think it's going to continue to be evaluated and reevaluated. And unfortunately, I don't think that's the answer that the people that want to be able to customize everything right now want. But I guess I'm trying to explain our kind of our philosophy. And I think as our project matures and as we get more as the stability in DePINs and revenue, I think that's when those kind of parameters become more stable, I guess, for us to be able to let kind of out into the wild. Did I answer that question? So did I answer that okay? Or did I leave anything out? Do you have a follow up? Because I really want to make sure that you
I think you answered it well. I think it's a very contentious issue internally, like Andrew said, but ultimately, like, we're trying to build something that's radically simple. And at the moment, like you said, at the stage of the project, that's really, really important because we need to be able to figure out, what are the most profitable DePINs, what's working really well. And it's very, very hard to get that information if you're creating more and more and more variables, because it's, it just muddies the water basically. So, but again, radically simple is part of the North Star. So I think most often when it comes down to it, if it's a split vote, for want of a better way to say, that's going to kind of be a guiding principle that sort of is kind of where we fall back on. We're kind of starting to run out of time a little bit. I'd like to, Bob, you have a question that you want to ask? There's one more question from Bob, and then I'd like to switch over and do the questions from the viewers at the moment, who have asked a bunch of questions about the airdrop, which I feel like we should get into, given that this is airdrop month and we have this snapshot coming up in a couple of days.
So I'm going to call a little bit of an audible here. My final question is, what keeps you guys up at night?
AI enslaving us all and taking over the world through the robots that Elon Musk is making for $20,000 each. That keeps me awake some nights. I just feel like as a species, I joke about it a lot in this show, but in sort of a dark kind of a humor way. I just feel like as a species, we don't think about things enough before we do them, So yeah, it's terrifying actually. Maybe I've just watched too many sci-fi movies, but about Havelo, my biggest fear with Havelo is that the deep is more of a DePIN space fear, because we just aggregate, right? We're not actually, like Andrew said earlier on, we're not actually building a network. We're aggregating all of the rest of DePIN, and I feel like a lot of DePIN is really focused on, creating a really usable interface, is creating a supply side thing, trying to solve the problem for the supply, the people who have resources to spare, when in reality, that's a really easy sell. The harder sell is on the demand side. Like, can you get somebody to use your decentralized AWS alternative instead of AWS? So I feel like there's a lot of technologists and engineers and amazing coders in this space. My fear is that there isn't enough commercial minds. Now, I could be completely wrong, and in the fullness of time, I might be proven wrong, and I really, really, really hope I am. And it's not even that I'm about being proven wrong. Actually, it's more about having that side of the equation balanced, and that it's complicated. Selling things to enterprise, which is where the money is really complicated. There's licensing and there's regulation and there's things that certain industries need. So it's a complicated equation to solve for, and I just hope that all of the DePIN projects that are out there, particularly the ones we're already integrating with, can solve for that problem. Because I think we're going to do a great job of bringing the supply for any projects that can solve for that. But yeah, I just don't. I feel like in crypto, there's a huge element of crypto that's all about like open source and cool tech, as opposed to well, how can we turn this into something that's actually commercially viable long term? Andrew?
Look, I'd say at the moment WSL is keeping me up at night, but Bob knows that one. Look, that I say that jokingly, but it is a the more we kind of progress with with Havelo, the more different types of hardware, the different types of projects that we're seeing, and that really does mean that there's a lot more work to do on our side in terms of the amount of testing and due diligence and whatnot. So it doesn't keep me up at night, as in it scares me. It doesn't scare me, but it just means that there's a whole lot more kind of work to be done, and particularly at the moment with these video models that I was sort of talking about earlier in the program. Some of our DePINs that we're integrated with are as small as maybe 20 or 30 megabytes to kind of as a binary to install. Whereas on with some of the the video models, I was just looking at one with another one of our members of staff, and just one model was 30 gigabytes, and you need to add that to another 2 or 3, put them all together. So it's just huge amounts of data and space and compute required, and so these things are taking longer and longer to sort of test and really thoroughly test before we put it into the market. And so that's what I spend a lot of my nights doing. I'll have my have some tests running and while I'm watching a movie or something, so I can keep an eye on it. But yeah, it does keep me up at night.
11,000 people viewing the stream now. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. It's a pretty good number while we're still live. All right, I'm going to switch us over to asking some questions from the audience. First up being Hitcalf, what are the strategies to reward real users and penalize bad actors? That's a great question. This was a huge problem for us, like after airdrop 1, which we did, on the back heels of our TGE, which anybody who's been through a TGE working on the team will tell you it just sucks up your life. Our whole team basically were in Vietnam for our TG, and it was like as close to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as is humane. Like we were just working around the clock. So the first airdrop happened off the back of that quite quickly. I think there was a lot of learnings from that first airdrop, I think would be fair to say. And the second airdrop, which we're doing next week, we implemented a lot. There was a lot of discussion and thought went into how we could do it so that we could reward the real community members and penalize bad actors. Because actually, the bad actors it's actually a much bigger problem than you might imagine. Like when you give away a pool of HVLO, for example, like we did the first time, they soak up a lot of HVLO, but then you also create a thing where there's an incentive to do it again. And then when you turn it off, when you try to get rid of bad actors, by kind of looking at accounts that are doing sort of dodgy stuff, etc., they're suddenly become the loudest voices flooding in the community, and it creates a really, really terrible community atmosphere that we've had to work very, very hard to get rid of. To get rid of that kind of, those people who are just, ticked off basically because they're not, the gravy train has kind of been turned off. So I would say this time we've done a lot of things. I'm really proud of our efforts to try and make the airdrop really, really, to really reward our most contributing members. We also have a whole bunch of things like the different roles that we have in Discords that you can kind of progress through as you contribute more and more to help the project. To just be an awesome community member, you can get XPs. There's a lot of different ways you can get XPs in Discord. So yeah, and I think then penalizing the bad actors. I mean, the greatest penalty, I think, is to just to completely remove any incentive to be a bad actor. In my opinion, that's the best way to penalize bad actors. And I think in this second airdrop, we should achieve that. Maybe not at 100%, but very close to 100%. Somewhere certainly in the 90s, where it's only going to be people with incredibly, people who have spent nearly as much time being, figuring out how to game things. If they put that time into being a contributing member of the community, they probably would have been able to contribute less time and gotten better rewards. So that's the kind of goal. So those are the kind of strategies, in my opinion, that we've done for the airdrop. And really, the airdrop is the only reason we have bad actors. We wouldn't have any bad acting node runners at all if we weren't giving away our tokens, because it's the airdrop points that they're trying to farm.
Yeah, I think also I was just going to say it also. I sound like I'm a bit of a broken record here, but it is also the price we pay for not putting a purchase requirement of buying an NFT. That's kind of the first gate that stops people from kind of gaming the system is having to spend $50, $100, $200. So it's part of the it's part of the price that we as a community have to pay for having an open community. Is that there's always going to be people who want to have or want to try and get something for nothing. That's just unfortunately some of the negative side of some bits of humanity. But yeah, I agree with Neil. In the first airdrop, we were rewarding downloading our application and running it. So the barrier is quite low there. So with the second airdrop, it really was rewarding people who are legitimately running the application.
Yeah, it's really problematic to have bad actors, because we had people where they were spinning up 100 different command line interface versions of Hello and not contributing any resources. So we had all these nodes that were effectively contributing nothing, not giving it, and they were just skewing all the data, as well as essentially stealing HVLO from the community. So that's just not something that we want. That's not, the airdrop is supposed to incentivize the behavior that we want to see in the community, the behavior that helps the project advance to the next level, and is a sort of a win-win for everybody. So yeah, the community, basically what it comes down to is the only people that win when bad actors are part of the equation are the bad actors. The community certainly don't, and Hello certainly doesn't. So it was an important problem to solve. Why was the snapshot planned for the 21st? I know it's a basic question, but I'd love to know the reason. That's a very simple answer. We wanted to have it finished by the end of August, and we knew it would take us a week to get from snapshot to the actual airdrop of the tokens themselves, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen, basically work that has to happen in between. So it's just that question, I think. I'm curious, will there be a season 3? And if yes, what's the new features that are on your mind for that? Yes, there is going to be I assume by season 3 means airdrop 3. There is going to be another airdrop. We haven't locked in any of the definite features, but as I mentioned earlier, the 10,000 points for referrals will definitely be a part of airdrop 3. So the other features, we will wait to see how this one goes. you know, in crypto, you try to come up with the most ungameable thing that you can, and then you put it into the wild and you see what happens. And you know, all the best planning in the world sometimes, you know, it's incredible human ingenuity. And yeah, people find ways around things all the time, and in this space it's more than any other I've ever worked in. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think we've got a pretty rock solid airdrop this time. So
maybe Deadshot, do you have some suggestions on you know, what you'd be interested to see in terms of features? Because you know, we always yeah, we always find you know, real gems in the community in terms of the suggestions. There's always something that you know, that we haven't thought about. So yeah, I'd love to hear feedback.
yeah, I think that's actually just what I'll say is a credit to the rest of the team, particularly C-suite in Havelo. You know, feedback is a gift. That's the way it's treated, especially when we don't want to hear it. So yeah, we always get anything that's suggested in terms of features, requests, stuff going wrong. Obviously, we have a whole support channel for that. But any ideas that people have, they always actually make it onto my desk, Andrew's desk, Dom's, the whole of the executive team. So yeah, never be shy. We love those. Minimum criteria. Well, the minimum criteria are you need to be running a node. So you need to be running Havelo on a machine. It doesn't have to be a powerful machine. It can be any machine. Yeah, and then if you're contributing resources, you have to actually honestly be contributing resources. And we've had a whole engineering effort to lock that down, to detect nodes that aren't contributing resources but are just looking to try and farm the airdrop points. So that shouldn't be possible anymore. So yeah, those are the two criteria. It's a somewhat easy one to answer, I think. Love how you've integrated Discord with airdrop events and challenges. My question is, what will be the snapshot time? It's on the 21st. We will announce that we've done the snapshot after we've done it. I don't think we're saying exactly when ahead of time. But yeah, there'll be an X post and a community post in Discord as soon as it's happened. Yeah, there's a little gap. It's not an instantaneous thing. There's a couple of different things that have to happen around the same time. So it'll be as close as possible together. And then we'll make the announcement shortly afterwards. Will the airdrop distribution information be open source? Well, I mean, yes, in the sense that all the transactions will be on chain. So I guess.
Is it? I'm not sure if HitCuff can reply, if we can get the replies, but yeah, maybe give us just a little bit more detail. Like Neil says, the transactions are on chain, but maybe it's in relation to what we were talking about before about the breakdown of the makeup of the points. But yeah, let us know, HitCuff.
Yeah, the makeup of the points. Well, the makeup of the points definitely won't be available to everybody. Like everybody's points available to everybody else. The real question is whether they'll be available to the actual user themselves. But certainly every wallet address and the amount will be available because it's all on Solana. Where will the HVLO tokens for the airdrop be sent? Inbuilt HVLO wallet or the Solana wallet that I linked to my dashboard? That's a great question.
Yeah, it goes to the inbuilt wallet. Yeah. Okay. And from there, yeah, you can can stake it. Yeah.
Okay. I think we answered that question already. We do have some other plans that we haven't really talked about yet. Well, actually, I wouldn't say they're plans. They're more like ongoing discussions about, building a framework so that DePINs can integrate themselves essentially into the Havelo network. These are longer term kind of things, but they all would tie back into adding value to HVLO. More to come on that. I would say our half-year report next year.
It's also the white paper as well on our website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take a look at the white paper. Yeah. Is it technically possible that Havelo can host 100 plus partner projects, or is there some bottleneck that you would face? Oh, there's loads of bottlenecks.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. That's a really good question. I think it kind of has sort of two answers to it. I think if you look at, if we were to integrate 100 projects right now based upon the status of the landscape, today, the 19th of August 2025, it's difficult. It's very difficult. Even in the 11 that we have at the moment, it's split across, I think, 4 different blockchains. Some are their own layer 1s, some are are built on layer 2. There's a lot of complexity in that. So it's not. It's technically possible to do it today, but I think it would be a very I think it would create its own kind of bottleneck in terms of its complexity.
We'd need a couple of 100 developers, I would imagine, and AI, definitely AI, to be able to orchestrate that volume.
And the main reason is just because of the lack of standardization, and because the industry is so new, there's no standards right now, so everybody is doing. When I say everybody, I mean the DePINs themselves, the projects, different building on different blockchains, different reward mechanisms, different programming languages. That everyone is kind of. I can't think of the right. Neil, you probably think of a much better marketing term for me, but kind of running on their own steam, or creating their own kind of journey. But
marching to their own drum.
Marching to their own drum. Yes, that's what I was thinking. I'm glad you're here to help me pull that out of my mind. So yeah, based on if we were to talk about it, the industry as it is today, it's a tough one. But what we are seeing through projects like IoTex and Peak is the beginning of standardized, some kind of standardization across DePIN, and that's going to take time. It's not going to be 6 months or 12 months. It's going to be an evolving process over a couple of years, and as the kind of as the projects become closer and closer aligned in terms of their kind of architecture and languages, and which chains are, and better bridging technologies and whatnot, then getting to 100 is a much more clear and kind of feasible realistic, I guess, proposition. So I'd say to summarize, today, hard, very difficult, not impossible, but very, very difficult, and probably commercially unfeasible. But we're starting the journey towards standardization. So it's definitely in the future.
Cool. So you had a question you wanted to ask, I think. Just jump in, mate. You don't have to.
Do you hear me now?
Yep.
Yep. It's the question that the entire crypto community wants to ask you personally. When alt season?
Yeah. I don't know, man. If I knew that,
I hope
I'll
that
let you
it will
know.
be after the airdrop.
Yeah, it's interesting times. Like I've been in the space since 2017-ish, like actively full time, like holding different tokens, etc. This year, this bull run, let's call it, has been so different than previous iterations. I feel like possibly because of Trump, possibly because of market maturity, who knows? But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Hopefully we're going to get an alt season, like a proper alt season. I mean, I think things have been trucking on pretty well. The focus seems to be back on legitimate projects from. I mean, there's still a lot of meme coin activity, but it seems to have gone more from the gambling meme coin kind of side of things to the. Probably going to upset people by saying that, but to the more utility based projects. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I think there's still a lot of questions in DePIN that need to be answered before we see a crazy DePIN season. But I also think DePIN is probably the first area of crypto where it has the potential that there's enough USD coming in, or whatever, fiat coming in to the space, like on the demand side of things, that it could potentially, we could see a sort of a more organic rather than speculative token price accrual and alt season, DePIN season, maybe.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
I think that the seasonality, which was until now, is completely changed. I'm pretty sure that some of the alts will see a bull run, but not like the previous cycles.
Yeah.
Not all small market cap coins will see this in crazy 10x, 50x, 100x gains. But I hope that Hibel will be part of this bull run.
Me too.
Yeah, I think fundamentals are that much more important now, and as you stated, projects that have a real product that can drive real revenue are what's really going to drive those token prices up. So while we can hope for the speculative part in the alt seasons, stay grounded in the fundamentals.
Exactly, I agree with that.
All right.
And
I think this
speaking
could
of
be.
fundamentals, just my last words, I will mention again, I want to salute you for the work that you have done up until this point of the development of Hivelo. And I think that nothing shows more my belief in your project than the fact that by waiting is tomorrow, and today still have managed to steal some time to make it
Oh,
up to be
wow.
here.
Oh, congratulations.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
dude.
fantastic.
Congrats.
Did I hear that right? Did you say your wedding is tomorrow? I just said, yeah, that's fantastic.
Good
yeah,
man.
congratulations.
Thank you.
I hope you're not getting in trouble from your partner for jumping on a call.
Not at all, not at all. She knows how much I respect and believe in your project.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
Well,
yeah.
Thanks so much for being here. There's one question that
I saw something pop up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come back.
Aggregating so many networks into one app. I mean, I think we kind of touched on this already, but I just wanted to give you a chance, Andrew, if you wanted to have a quick answer to that. Otherwise, we can wrap up.
Yeah. Look. I think the biggest challenge really is trying to it's a moving target really in a lot of ways. So trying to aggregate so many different projects at scale where you don't have any control over that's decentralization. Essentially there's no one person in control while they're also still in their kind of early stages. It's really like maybe running on a treadmill, but then putting another treadmill on the treadmill to try and trying to stay on top of it. It's that's really the hardest part of aggregating all of these kind of projects. And if you think about it, maybe if you compare DePIN aggregation to flight ticket aggregation, if you're like a Expedia or something like that, I mean, all the airlines are selling a seat for this price from this destination to this destination. It's very standardized, and so it's much easier to aggregate these kind of things. But when you're it's like one is a plane and one is a bus that needs to go underwater, and another one is a scooter with only one wheel, and trying to get them all on the same highway and drive at the same speed. That's what it can feel like a little bit. Yeah,
it's challenging. And I just want to address something which is around earnings and things like that. With all of what Andrew was just talking about and the challenges of that, we are still in beta. It's an extraordinarily, we're trying to make something that's extraordinarily complex. And if you've ever tried to install some of the, particularly, I think they've gotten a bit better, but some of the earlier and even now some of the DePINs, it's really challenging if you're not technical, and it's just not available for everybody. So what we're trying to do is to simplify that, and the app is still in beta. We're going to aggregate more DePINs. We're going to optimize them so that you can make as much as possible from them. But at the end of the day, if those networks aren't out there selling, their rewards aren't going to be great either. If they don't have jobs to give you, or if your spec isn't powerful enough to take those jobs in some cases, then that's going to have an impact on what you can earn. So for us at the moment, it's interesting because obviously, like I think you said earlier on, Andrew, there's a massive range of machines that are in the Havelo network right now. You've got everything from old dusty laptops which don't have great uptime, to powerful gaming rigs which have very powerful graphics cards which can take advantage of networks like Nasana and other networks will bring on in the sort of coming weeks, months, and years. So I think it's important for people to be realistic with their expectations as well. Right now, DePIN is very nascent. It's very early days. There are some opportunities to earn, but if you've got, if you're expecting large rewards from very old technology, there's going to be a bit of a mismatch there, I would say, which isn't to say that you shouldn't run it, because who knows, there's a geography thing. It can change. We're talking about something that's very much moving all the time and changing all the time. So yeah, I just think you need to take a big picture view and look towards the future, not just today and not even just the last month. Like the next month could be completely different than the last month. For any one of the networks that we've integrated with, so yeah, I would say that. I would just say as well that something that's quite interesting, and we're going to butcher this stat, but I've been digging into some of the data through one of our data reporting tools, and the top 5% of Havelo users. So the 5% of Havelo users that are earning the most revenue, most rewards, have a 97% uptime, whereas the bottom 95% have an average of 47% uptime. So that'll give you some sort of an idea. I think a lot of that's laptops, because you close your laptop, you put it away in a bag when you're not using it. So it's got less resources to contribute while it's being used, and then it's offline, so it's not contributing anything. So I would just say to anybody who's maybe not experiencing the kind of rewards that they would like to experience, just make sure your uptime is as high as it can be, and have patience. We're in the beta stage. Things are just going to get better and better from here as we aggregate more, as Andrew builds his brain even bigger through cognitive load, optimizing dozens of DePIN networks and managing the team there. So yeah, that would be my final. Those would be my final words. I don't know if you have any final words, and then the guys, you can, if you guys want to say any final words as well, and then we will call it a day at 17,000 viewers.
No, just congrats again, Svein, for your nuptials tomorrow. That's
yeah, well, it's awesome.
That's I'll leave it. And Bob, please, if you want that free one-on-one lesson, I'm happy to give it any time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you guys for the time today. You know, as a community member, it's nice to be able to come up here and chat with you guys. We appreciate everything you guys are doing. It may not always come across that way in Discord, but no, it comes from a place of love. So, you know, we're a very passionate community, and, you know, we're a very vocal community. So thank you, everyone out in the community, for everything you do. And yeah, excited for the future.
Thanks, Bob.
I can agree with Bob, and I also mentioned that in this community, I can say proudly that I have made real friendships. They're really nice guys in this community.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Have we figured out if Rems is a girl or a boy yet?
This will remain a mystery till the end of times.
Some things are better left unknown.
Maybe, yeah. I think that's why she didn't want to come on the show. We would ruin the mystery. It's like the Stig in Top Gear. All right. Well, thank you, gents, and thank you to all of you who are tuned in. All 17,500 almost of you. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a PB on the actual, while we're on the live stream. It's just ticking up like crazy. So I think the lesson there is the longer you do the live stream, the more people you get watching it while you're live. Because we're about an hour and a half now, which is super long episode by normal standards. Thank you, Andrew, for coming and sharing your wisdom. Svein and Bob, thanks a million. You guys are awesome in the community. Don't ever be afraid to give us feedback.
Thank you, sir.
And you can be as blunt as you want. It's genuinely, feedback is a gift. And yeah, we've had some great ideas. I think sometimes you don't fully understand how useful it is to us to hear from you guys. I mean, we've had many conversations, you know, at the decision-making level of the organization where, you know, we change something or we adjust, you know, or we have a robust discussion and decide not to change anything because, you know, it's going to change itself over time. So I just want you to know, and for all of the community who are tuned in, you know, feedback is a gift. We really appreciate it. So with all that said, thanks a million to everybody, especially you, those of you watching and tuning in every week. Really appreciate your interest in DePIN and what we're doing at Havelo. And if you haven't as of yet tried Havelo, havelo.com, join our Discord community. There's loads and loads of reasons, even financial ones, to do that. So until next week, thank you so much. Live well, be happy, treat each other kindly, and we'll see you next week.